on plans for summer school. As you know, one of our concerns is the fact that by leaving school when we did, we still had quite a bit of school instructional time that we would have obviously made up if had we not been interrupted by the COVID-19. So we are planning on a summer school program to be available to our students. We have three different programs, one for high school, middle school, and elementary, all of which will be done virtually. This is our proposed plan for this. And Mr. Seifert, are you available? Are you able to sign on?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Good evening.
Keith Seifert, Chief Academic Officer with the district. Wanted to give you a kind of a brief overview of the plan for summer school as we now see it, which is in somewhat of a change from previous summer schools. I think Ron has a little, Mr. Pleasant.
Yes, sir.
You have that the PowerPoint slides up?
I do not. Let me look for them.
While we're waiting on that, do we have any number? Do we know about the number of students that are impacted by this?
We're currently gathering those numbers. We've sent out communications to the elementary, middle, and high school principals, and that data is coming in currently right now. We should be able to obtain those numbers by the end of this week.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Well, briefly, what we're, as Dr. Lewis alluded to, we're running three staggered sessions. The first session will be high schools. The high school session, which we're looking to run the dates from June 1st through June 18th. The schools will utilize Georgia Virtual Credit Recovery, Apex, which is a software program we purchased. The credit recovery, this is not unusual for our students and our teachers. They utilize this in previous years during the summer. The only difference is this year it'll be totally virtual, where the students in previous years, they could, it was more of a blended environment. They could come into the classroom for 3.5 hours and then based on what courses they needed, and then they could work on it at home as well. But the Georgia Virtual Credit Recovery Program is a teacherless program. It's a scripted program. It's been in place for many, many years. And we take advantage of that because it's a free aligned curriculum to the Georgia standards. The Apex program, the schools will identify students to take those courses in the Georgia Virtual program first because they are directly aligned to the standards. And then if they don't have the courseware in Georgia Virtual, then we revert to Apex, which is a program that has many different courses that are national standards associated with that particular software. The middle school program will run June 15th through July 2nd. In the past, we ran, it was mainly for 8th grade, but we did run course recovery in those for those students that needed to make a 70 in their course to pass the required number of courses to be promoted to the next grade. Generally, we ran them in 8th grade for the students who did not meet standard on the GMAS reading or the math courses. So we will still align those courses. We'll have an hour and a half of instruction for ELA and reading. We'll have a 30-minute break, and then we'll run another hour and a half section for math. Embedded in that will be science and social studies. If students need those courses to be promoted, there'll be courses available for that. In our elementary grades, we're running it through grades 3 through 5, July 13th through the 30th. Again, it's a 3.5 hour program, 8 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Again, we're running an hour and a half of ELA reading. There'll be a 30-minute break, and then an hour and a half of math instruction. So based on the dates and times, we feel that's necessary, so we can have the access, or the which Ron will talk about in a few, with regards to internet access and being able to allow students to gain access. Want to comment on the elementary level. The idea was that we wanted to preload, or kind of highlight the student standards that they missed from March 13th on. So we wanted them to gain access to those standards, as well as preload standards for the upcoming school year. So we have 14 days of instruction, 3.5 hours of instruction each day, which we're calling face-to-face virtual instruction. This is not something where teachers assign it and then they go off and do something else. This is face-to-face instruction virtually with our students. We want our teachers to be able to communicate with our students, be able to work with them virtually. They can do that through Zoom sessions, and they can also utilize cell phones and to make sure they're in contact with those students every day, to make sure they're on task and ready to go. As far as the instructional plan for that, we are building courses in our learning management system, Canvas. The courses are being built by our content specialists. They have their identified power standards that we know most of the curriculum and the skills come from. So we're focusing on those power standards, as well as we talked about, the pacing guides, looking at the materials from March 13th on. We've had input from our through teacher surveys, through our academic coaches in the schools, as well as teacher advisory members, and we'll continue to look out to our teacher advisory for this particular program, the summer program, so we get more input from them. Basically, the delivery of instruction and teacher support that we're going to follow. Teachers are going to have to be proficient in Canvas. I know the Division of Information Services have identified a course, 6-hour course for Canvas that all our teachers will need to participate in and pass. We also talk with our principals to make sure that the teachers that are going to be teaching in this summer school program, they need to be our stellar teachers for virtual teaching. They have to be in a position where they know how to utilize the Canvas platform, as well as know the standards and know the instructional strategies for our program. The content specialist will provide an orientation overview to all our teachers in Canvas and on the instructional models. So the teachers are well versed in how to utilize the programs. As I said, we're trying to do a scripted 14-day program that provides enough flexibility for teachers to be able to utilize their own strategies if need be. Because again, we've got a lot of great teachers out there that do a lot of wonderful things. We're trying to provide some kind of framework and some kind of structure that will script them as they move through the program. And then as far as our teachers and our specialists, we'll continue to provide that support. Our specialists will be there to answer any phone calls or help support them in any way with regards to the instructional modules that we have that they built in the system. We will use our curriculum backbone adopted materials such as Reading Wonders, Envision Math, Georgia Collections, Go Math, all our digital programming that we purchased. We do have additional program or supplemental resources that we use. The Achieve 3000, the Lexia, the Core 5 and the Power Up, IXL, Star Math, Star Reading, all those components are going to be built in and students have access as well as teachers have access to that. We didn't want to go out and get a different type program. Our teachers are experienced with these programs as well as our students are experienced with these programs. So those will help in gathering the data necessary for the teachers to be able to structure lessons for our students, as well as provide additional student practice and skill development over the course of that time frame. We also built in with support from Dr. Vickers and her staff a social emotional component. We want to start off every lesson with a check-in that is scripted questions, so students teachers can really see where their students are and be able to identify if there are any potential issues. And because we are living in this environment, a lot of stress associated with this digital environment, virtual environment, and we need to be able to tap into where our kids are socially, emotionally. And we'll use the BESS or the behavioral and emotional screening system that we've used in the past, as well as our second step curriculum, which we've trained on over the course of several years now. So those are just at a high level, some of the pieces that'll be associated with that, from an instructional standpoint and from a dates and times standpoint. We're still building these. As we'll be able to, for elementary, be able to build those over the course of the next several weeks. As I said, the high schools have been generating or working in that program of Georgia Virtual and Apex for several years now. So they're very experienced with that, and they know what that how that works. I'd like for Ron to chime in, because this is our kids will need to have their Chromebooks, and we know we've distributed Chromebooks to our middle and high schools as we were looking to distribute our Chromebooks this next year for our elementary schools. And we know that what's very important is access. We want all our kids to have access to what they need to support their learning. So I'm going to let Ron take over and talk a little bit about the technology piece.
Hello, everybody. Essentially, for the technology piece, we are accelerating a plan that we already had in place to deliver Chromebooks to the elementary schools this coming year. What we're looking to do is actually make those deliveries in early July so that we can negotiate with the schools on distributing those Chromebooks just before their summer school session. In addition to that, we have a number of students who do not have reliable internet connectivity at home. So we're trying to identify those students and procure a number of MiFi devices that will actually give them the connectivity they need to do their student work. At the secondary level, since we've already delivered those Chromebooks to the students, many of the high schools are actually checking them in and checking them right back out. So that's one less thing that we have to contend with. We still do need to procure MiFi devices for those students that don't have internet access at home. And we're working on getting those counts and getting those orders in.
And then, Dr. Lewis, I know you wanted to talk about
Yes.
fall reopening.
Yes, we know there are a lot of questions and equally there are a lot of uncertainties about what the scenario is going to look like for going forward. So we are in the process of developing 3 different plans for the eventual reopening of our schools. One is in the eventuality we have a full face-to-face starting school like we always have in the past. I think that's going to be very idealistic given the current situation. The other one is to go 100% virtual if need be, if conditions warrant. But realistically, we're looking at a hybrid model, which would allow for students to come to school or for us to serve students through a virtual model, taking into consideration that we do have some of our teachers, about a third of our workforce, either have they themselves have some kind of pre-existing condition that is problematic related to COVID-19, or people in their homes that do. So they would be working from home. Likewise, we know there's maybe some parents who are not comfortable sending their children to school, so they might find a virtual option more palatable. At the same time, we recognize there are many parents who, if they don't work, they are not able to get paid. And we certainly want to maintain the integrity of what our workforce is in our community. So given that, we are looking at that virtual option as one possibility, or the face-to-face if conditions warrant. But a hybrid model is one that we're really looking at probably realistically as we start looking toward the reopening. But again, lots of things change very quickly, and we're trying to stay abreast of those both from the federal, state, and local levels, and we're working with our health officials, and we will make decisions based on that at the time. But we are building plans for all the eventualities we might be faced with going forward. I think Ms. Williams had a question.
Yes, Dr. Lewis, I'm curious if you really follow the numbers right now. Georgia, Muskogee County only added 3 cases this weekend. I think there's a case to be made that the curve has been somewhat flattened, but there's also some pretty good data that shows there may be a second wave of this in the fall, come November, perhaps even as late as December. So in your models, are you taking into account however we land on opening, providing for the eventuality of having to shut it all down again?
Right. That would be the third, that would be our other option of 100% virtual. We are working toward that as one of the options going forward, whether that's something we start the school with or have to move to that model after the school year would start. So yes, we're planning for all possibilities.
Okay, thank you.
And also we have to keep in mind that data on the control, the rate of spread for the coronavirus is also lag data. And the planning is just planning because it's such a moving target. And so getting a head start is going to be pretty essential to how we continue to service our families and our students, which is the whole purpose of our being and a part of the leadership that we have to provide as a board and as a school district. But there were some mention, if we're so used to the fact that we have one-to-one devices in our county, that is unique. And we are very fortunate, but I must say, as we cannot say enough, thank you to the citizens for supporting the eSplost. Because that allows our students to have these one-to-one devices, and we're going to roll out with the elementary school with their Chromebooks as soon as we can. And our biggest problem with having the one-to-one devices is to ensure connectivity. And so we want to always say thank you to the citizens for supporting the eSplost and to remind that COVID-19 has also affected our civic duty to participate in elections. And we do have a new SPLOST on the ballot that was originally March 24th and then May, and now it's on this June 9th ballot to remind citizens that that vote is still not resolved, and for them to look carefully on their ballot for the continuation of our educational special purpose local option sales tax that support everything that we do, maintaining the integrity in the classroom, and now maintaining the ability to do distant learning, electronic learning, digital learning. This is really COVID-19 learning, so that we can continue to service our students. And so we want to encourage the citizens to go out and vote in support of that eSPLOS. Are there any other questions or concerns, board members? None? All right, so that's the end of our board meeting. We do have, we'll need a motion for an executive session to discuss a property matter and a personnel matter. So I need a motion by Ms. Williams, second by, is there a second?
Second.
Dr.
By
Slide.
Mr. Cantrell, thank you. To go into executive session. All in favor, we'll do a hand vote, raise your hand. All right, that is unanimously. We'll go into executive session. Thank you all. Have a wonderful summer. And I still be recording on YouTube.
Aye.